Nobody who ever built something real was waiting to feel inspired when they built it. Inspiration is short-lived. Most people know this, and yet they keep chasing it, waiting for the right moment, the right feeling, the right surge of energy before they begin. And while they are waiting, the people who are actually building something are already at work. Not because they feel more inspired, because they stop needing to. The people who consistently produce extraordinary results are not the most talented people in the room. They are not always the most experienced. They are the most disciplined. And there is a difference between those two things that most people have never been properly taught. That is what today is about. Here is what inspiration actually is, biologically. It is a neurochemical event. Dopamine, norepinephrine. The brain lights up, the energy surges, the vision feels clear and close and completely achievable. And then it fades. It always fades. Because the brain cannot sustain that level of activation indefinitely. It was never designed to. Inspiration is the spark. It is real, it is valuable, and it is temporary. What discipline does is keep the fire burning long after the spark is gone. And that is the only version of performance that actually compounds. The Japanese understood this centuries before modern neuroscience confirmed it. They called it Kaizen, the practice of continuous incremental improvement. Not dramatic transformation, not overnight reinvention, just 1% better every single day, deliberately, consistently, without exception. And when you run the mathematics of that commitment over a full year, the result is not a 1% improvement. It is 37 times better. Not from a single breakthrough, but from the quiet, relentless accumulation of small acts that most people dismiss as too insignificant to bother with. That is the formula. It is unglamorous, and it is the most powerful performance strategy available to any individual or any team on the planet. Now here is where most conversations about discipline get it completely wrong. They make it sound like suffering, like grinding, like white-knuckling your way through every day with your jaw clenched and your eyes fixed on some distant reward. And for some people, that version works. For a while. But it burns out. And it produces a kind of performance that is fragile because it depends entirely on the person being able to force themselves forward every single time. That is not discipline. That is willpower. And willpower is a finite resource. Real discipline is different. Real discipline is identity. It is the point where the behavior stops being something you have to force and becomes something you simply do because of who you are, not because of how you feel. The person who has built genuine discipline does not ask themselves whether they feel like showing up today. That question is no longer relevant. They show up because that is what they do. Like breathing, like eating. It is no longer a decision. It is a default. And building that default is the actual work. Think about Richard Branson and the early days of Virgin Atlantic. The first flight had problems. The early years were financially brutal. By any conventional measure, the beginning was a mess. But Branson did not wait until it was perfect to start. He started imperfect. Failed publicly, adjusted, improved. One iteration at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time. And what Virgin became over decades was not the result of a single inspired moment. It was the result of a discipline of iteration, of being willing to be wrong in public, to learn faster than the competition, and to keep showing up regardless of what the last attempt looked like. You are supposed to be bad at things when you start them. That is not a flaw in the process. That is the process. The brain learns through repetition and failure. Every attempt that falls short is the nervous system gathering data, refining the pathways, building the neural architecture of eventual mastery. Neuroplasticity does not happen in comfort. It happens in challenge. The person who is willing to begin before they are ready, who is willing to look imperfect, to struggle visibly, to keep going without the guarantee of immediate results, that person is building something in their neurology that the person waiting for the right conditions will never build. Because the right conditions never arrive. They are created through action, through repetition, through discipline. For a team, this changes everything when it becomes the culture, when the standard shifts from perfection to progress, when the expectation is not that you arrive already excellent, but that you commit to improving every single day. The pressure of performance stops being something individuals carry alone and becomes something the whole team carries together. People stop hiding their gaps because the culture rewards the willingness to grow, not just the appearance of already being there. And in that environment, the rate of development across the whole organization accelerates because people are no longer spending energy managing how they look. They are spending it on actually getting better. The morning matters more than most people realize. The first hour of the day is where discipline is either built or abandoned. Not in the dramatic moments, in the small ones. Whether you get up when you said you would. Whether you move your body before the day gets loud. Whether you spend the first few minutes of the day in intention or in reaction. These are not big things, but they are the things that signal to the brain and to the identity what kind of person you are. And the brain, which is always listening, always building, always reinforcing whatever pattern you give it most consistently, responds accordingly. 1% better today, 1% better tomorrow, 1% better the day after that. It does not sound like much. That is exactly why most people underestimate it, and exactly why the ones who commit to it end up somewhere the ones who are waiting for inspiration never reach. Discipline is not the absence of passion. It is passion with a structure. The most successful people you admire did not get there because they always felt like it. They got there because they showed up when they did not. That is the addiction worth building. This is Michael Abdullah.